So we continue the coverage at Commercial Vehicle Magazine Industry Talk. Good to have a man who has the technical bent of mind but can look beyond that as well. So Shubhranshu, thank you so much for sparing the time.
Thank you.
You've got a lot on your plate. You essentially drive the business in a sense through your role, which is Chief Marketing Officer at CVBU at Tata Motors. Tell us about how marketing has changed, because you are a man who's seen category and brand management very closely, different brands, different product categories, you've seen it all. So at Tata Motors, at the CV major, if you just reflect back your entire tenure so far, how has marketing evolved at Tata Motors?
Well, it is my great privilege to have been in this business last 3.5 years and to support this pioneering titan of a business.
Right.
You're right, I have worked in many categories, including consumer packaged goods, financial services,
very
broadcasting.
Diverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the learning curve has been by far the most steep in this job, because before I got to commercial vehicles, the understanding was, oh, it's the logistics business.
Right.
Once you come in, you discover what a huge ocean this industry is and how it touches each and every part of the economy.
Yeah.
You know, we are sitting here, doubtless to say this furniture would have arrived on commercial vehicles. Many of the people and associates who are working in this office would have come here in a bus.
Sure.
The food, the catering, you name it, and commercial vehicles touches every part of the economy, our social life, our individual existence.
Right.
And I don't think people recognize this, especially when it comes to drivers in the commercial vehicles industry.
Right.
There is a huge need for empathy and elevating their stature in life, etc. And then I am doubly blessed to be with Tata Commercial Vehicles, because Tata Motors, you know, is inspired and heavily takes the equity from Tata.
Right.
And that is a brand that is seen to be so elevated, and it has a halo rightfully earned.
Right.
For trust, for doing the right things for community, society, for the nation, that it has been a real privilege to be here.
Right.
And you are right, marketing is an essential constituent of all our go-to-market plans.
Right.
Within the business, we see our function as a support function that enables the various business teams to reach the right consumer, offer the right product and services, talk in their language, inspire them, engage them, motivate them, and so on.
Right, right. You truly mentioned that very right when you say it's, the CV business is a barometer of the economy. Now, when you look at marketing as a support function, if you look at the fundamentals of marketing, you know, something as simple as the P's of marketing, would you say those P's have evolved? Are there more P's now?
Certainly. I think even within the P, see, product, place, price, and promotion.
Right.
You see, let's cut to roughly when the IDA model or the 4 Ps or positioning came into currency, which is the period from the late 50s through till the 70s.
Right.
We talk about a unique selling proposition, psychographics, and so on. At the time, say July of 1969, when man landed on the moon, the entire computing power that was available at NASA was less than what would be there in your electric iron at home. And I'm not exaggerating.
Right.
This phone of yours has more computing power by a multiple than what existed in totality on the planet at that time.
That time, yes.
Now, naturally, consumer lives are saturated with mobile devices, ease of access to the internet. So to imagine that you can still operate a 360-degree marketing plan which was broadly valid in the 60s and 70s is truly delusional. Consumer lives have shifted.
Right.
Cut to India today, where 400 million people are less than 20 years of age. 40 crore Indians are less than 20 years of age.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, 65% of the country's population is less than 32 years of age.
Right.
So it's an enormously large country, the most populous on the planet, full of young people who are just beginning their lives,
Right.
optimistic about the future. It's already the 5th largest economy. Naturally, therefore, the 4 Ps who are, to be addressed with products, practically everybody. India has 1 billion people moving into a better life than they've ever had in the past. So the share of wallet is immense. Should I buy a geyser? Should I buy an air conditioner? Should I buy a computer? Should I buy a two-wheeler, a car? So everything is competing for their interest. Where? Place? Everywhere. The distinctions between urban and rural, between mid-tier and metro is melting away thanks to the road networks, thanks to the internet, penetration of salient media like television, etc. Price. All price points, discount, popular, prestige, premium. Luxury business is booming, bottom of pyramid models are flourishing as well. And then promotion. Back in the day when I began life in Hindustan Lever in 1999, everybody at the table understood every part of the media mix. It was principally a print, outdoor and television led plan. You had some activation and so on. Today, peer-to-peer interaction, the influence of social media, consumers doing search and find, direct to consumer, and then competing between the alternatives on digital. It's not only your app, it is every other app that he or she interacts with, for example. This has changed promotion forever. But I would say, in response to your question, the 2 biggest changes that I have encountered has been the salience of always on digital media, and within it the power of the creator economy, the influencer. Earlier, as a marketer, you were very privileged. I called it the rate card era, where you made an ad or a print advertisement. You went to a media owner who had a constituency, a catchment. So off the rate card you could buy that many eyeballs. Nobody then had a right to touch the film or the print ad, and it went through to people. Today, if people are not spoofing your ad, if they are not commenting on it, if they are not pushing it here and there, it is a failure.
That virality is not
the
there.
Virality and the way in which that osmosis happened. Earlier it was a fairly linear path. Now that linear path has changed into a jalebi. Everybody is touching everybody. My son doesn't order pizza from a new place without checking the ratings. So the enormous shift that has happened, any 12-year-old who has a phone today, a smartphone,
is part of that economy.
Is part of that economy and is way more saturated into what's happening there than I and you are. So marketers have to be way more humble. I learn a lot from my 16-year-old son because he is way more advanced. He has lived his whole life as a digital native. And anybody who has a phone has a walking, talking studio. So the shift has been truly tectonic, and this is something we need to recognize with a dose of humility.
Staying a little longer on the marketing jargons, because it's very organic to have that discussion with you. You said this economy has changed drastically. There is a lot more access, and the decision makers are very young. So if you compare to a decade ago, would you say the mix of ATL, BTL, and now even through the line marketing has also then changed? Which way is the marketing strategy leaning towards?
Well, I mean, at a global level, there is no doubt about it that figures are all out. As you would know, 2024 was the first year in which global advertising revenues touched $1 trillion. And out of that, roughly $700 billion was digital. In that pure play digital, if you take away what I would call trade marketing spends, say an Amazon, then there were 3 big clusters. The Meta cluster, which comprises Facebook, Insta and WhatsApp and so on. Then the Google stack.
SEO, display ads, all of that.
And then there is a big China play with TikTok principally across the world, but within China there is a very flourishing ecosystem. These 3 had the bulk of that $700 billion. Outside of that, there is X, there is Snapchat, and
the other
smaller players. Now, this, in terms of sheer volume, numbers, India is by far amongst the largest, if not the largest market. So the trend has been a secular trend to shift towards digital.
Right.
And the reason for that is also clear. It is way more manageable.
Sure.
It responds to fluidity.
It's measurable, perhaps.
It is measurable.
Yeah.
And you have an algorithmic drip irrigation that is possible. You see, you and I don't realize our lives are largely algorithmically mediated.
Yes.
When you open your mail, which mails are sorted in which folder, your playlist on a song app, your the way in which the thumbnails appear on, say, a Netflix.
Sure.
All of these things are following what you do, and then putting that in a massive jigsaw puzzle of what people like you are doing per se. So it's recommendatory in terms of crowdsourcing.
Yes.
And it is persuasive in terms of understanding and following you for what you do. So this is now an irreversible trend.
Right.
Therefore, marketers can sit and say, they can be on a nostalgia trip, or they can actively take measures which allow them to ride the wave. It's like the parallel that I often draw and share with my team and others is, say, 40-50 years ago, a skilled marketer was like a football player. You were still running and you have to take a ball to the goal.
Sure.
Then with the emergence of new technologies, it became like a water polo player. You have to swim. So you better know how to swim, because otherwise you'll sink, and yet you have
to reach there.
Then with the emergence of social networks, not social media, it became like horse polo, horseback riding. So you have to control something which has a mind of its own, and still take the ball to the goal.
Sure.
And I would say today we are living in a domain which is still evolving, but quite clearly we may be playing a game in which there is no defined goal or no defined ball. So over a period in time, you have to stay fit, stay alert, and be ahead of the game. So the closest parallel that I draw is like a skilled surfer. You have to anticipate the wave, you know how to ride the wave. Riding a surfboard is not easy. And every once in a while, even the most expert of surfers topples over. So there is no shame in having tried to ride a wave and fallen on your head. But you get up and then ride the next wave. So this is the way the world is shaping up.
Now, with that, of course, this entire huge backdrop of all the marketing jargons and how marketing as such has evolved, you have many more stakeholders to reach out to. That is one. And the system seems to have become a little more transparent. It can be brutal at times because everything is out there in the public domain. As a CV major, how do you deal with that? There are, of course, the pros. This is perhaps a con or something that you have to live with, as you said. How do you deal with that? Because everything is transparent. Everybody has a voice. Everybody can reach out. Perhaps the hierarchies have disappeared. How do you live with that brutality?
Let me address both parts. One, you were talking about measurability and therefore what, and then the other part about how do you shape that. See, measurability, in every universe of metrics, there are vanity metrics and there are effective metrics, So even back in the day, if you gave a print ad in a newspaper or a magazine, you have circulation, and that's equivalent to the number of people reached on any given month or steady state basis. Does not mean all of those people are perusing the ad or taking confirmatory action. It is
reaching them.
Now, in this business of digital, you are able to identify people like Shubhranshu, identify the interests, take permission to be able to market to them directly or indirectly. And so basically the degree of transactionability and a bolt-on lift study is amenable. You can do that. So that's a very positive thing. At the same time, the number of apertures has increased immensely. Earlier, you had limited windows. So say at the time that you were giving a print ad and the print ad was missed, you'd pick up the phone and you would ask for a make good. Today, in the always on world, the numbers are so humongous and the number of interaction facets are so many that to keep that kind of course we have auditable data. But the point is you have to be in the right place to hit right. And so your understanding of consumer evolution has to be speeded up immensely.
Right, right.
Now, commercial vehicles, 3.5 years ago when I started the digital ramp up, the belief was that people will not necessarily buy commercial vehicles through digital means only. And we have shared this data in the public domain that uniformly across the businesses, up to 20, even greater than 20% of steady state sales are coming from purely digitally sourced leads. And we have grown to become the fastest growing and the largest YouTube channel within 2 years of our existence.
That's at about 1.32 lakh subscribers.
No, it has
grown beyond that.
It has grown way beyond that.
Okay.
We've also got more than 30 crore views from a cadre of influencers, about 500 odd who have created some 2,000-3,000 videos overall, covering every facet from quality to reliability to service, product comparisons and so on at the time of launches and otherwise. That number of engagement is very healthy percentage of the overall viewership. So commercial vehicles, like any other part of the consumer world, is very amenable to digital.
Right.
It's very fertile soil. People do lean in, they find it convenient, they find it usually supportive to their consumer decision journeys.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to understand all modalities are present in commercial vehicles. Business to business.
Yes.
Business to consumer in the small commercial vehicle space, business to consumer in the CV passenger space. So you may in turn sell to a state transport corporation, but then so many people get onto a bus every day.
Right.
So the modalities are many, consumer interactions are many, people recognize big brands, people have deep emotional connect with the vehicles that they have. It is no different to my mind from any other business, and therefore digital should behave more or less similarly.
Is this pattern similar or drastically different from the passenger vehicle side of business?
Well, I mean, I would not imagine that it's dramatically different, except that there your choice variables and the priority with which those choice variables are being looked at may be different, I suppose. But even then we find things like cabin comfort, just association of a particular style with a brand, reliability, quality, fuel efficiency, whether you're making a judicious choice, all of those things are as pertinent to commercial vehicles as I imagine them to be in passenger vehicles. I certainly can say, because I was global head of marketing for Royal Enfield, in two-wheelers as well, the modalities are very similar. The bondedness with the brand as a community was higher, especially in Royal Enfield. But commercial vehicles no different. People feel like they earn a living from that vehicle. And earning a living and taking care of your family and progressing in life, these are very powerful, potent emotions and motivators. So I'm very confident that, like in every other part of the consumer ecosystem, for the commercial vehicle catchment as well, this is very relevant.
A final leading question into the refreshed brand strategy at Tata Motors. You are also a lot reliant on the influencer pool, as you mentioned that it's a big chunk of the reach that you have today. How do you deal with concerns around credibility of influencers? One is you are reaching out to people, but you would want to reach out in a credible manner as well. So how do you deal with that? What kind of a strategy do you have to take along the influencers and ensure that the credible voices being reached to the target audience?
No, I'm glad you asked that question because it is important. You see, they do speak on your behalf, but really not so, because the real reason for X to be an influencer
is the community that
they are influential. So it is driven by the actions that they take, the credibility that they earn, the community that they build, and their content gives them value, which is why they're there. So two things that work very well in the influencer world. One, we have no influence on the editorial voice, because otherwise then you might as well do advertising,
Fair enough, yes.
When the influencer speaks, they speak in their language, they speak with their points of view. We facilitate, naturally coverage and vehicle availability and so on. Secondly, when they are being able to create that narrative, if you are a person in farm produce logistics, or you are you're taking care of seafood transportation in coastal Andhra.
Sure.
You want to listen to somebody's experience in Telugu,
Yeah, the native
who
language.
is in the seafood and fisheries transport business.
Right.
The fact that a local person present in Andhra Pradesh is able to create that content and introduce them to A or B is a very powerful motivator for them to actually engage.
Sure.
Now, we have obviously tied up with a partnership entity that does two things for us. One, screening programmatically who is trending and for what reasons.
Okay.
We look at the video views, we look at the engagement per video,
Okay.
and that becomes basically the leaderboard based on which we cull out the ones that we want to work with.
Sure.
Secondly, we are not at all in a captive mindset, in the sense we don't want to say you will not work with anybody else. So
Right.
there is a pool of influencers.
Sure.
In fact, when we began this journey, say 2 years ago, there were only limited number of people who were doing regular commercial vehicles coverage. Some of them, many more were doing passenger vehicles, so we borrowed those in.
Right.
And then at every level, nano, micro and mega influencers, we have tried to create from scratch a very credible body
Cool.
of work. So when they do that, naturally they learn along with us, and they appear to be therefore authentic. So authenticity is the important thing.
Right.
And there I don't mind if there are 3 hits and 1 miss, because the credibility is what we are actually framing the entire content with.
Right.